We just talked about doing the movie technique as a silent movie or a tell the story movie. Is there a memory that you want to work on? So which way do you want to do it, as silent or as tell the story?
Tell the story.
Okay. Do you have a movie title?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the title?
Cruden Farm.
Cruden Farm. And when you say that, which is just down the road here in Langwarrin, and here we are just about in Langwarrin, what comes up in your body when you think about just the title?
Tightness around.
Tightness around, so chest. And what's that tightness out of 10? 9. And this is an option. Do you want to say what the emotion is?
Grief.
Grief. So even though, repeat my words, even though I have this 9 out of 10 grief
I have this 9 out of 10 grief
in my chest
when
I think about the movie title, Cruden Farm, I accept myself and how I feel. Even though when I think about the movie title, Cruden Farm, I feel this grief in my chest. 9 out of 10. I accept myself and how I feel. Even though I've got this movie title, 9 out of 10, a grief in my chest. When I think about Cruden Farm, I accept myself and how I feel. Cruden Farm movie title. 9 out of 10. Grief in my chest. When I think of the movie title, Cruden Farm. 9 out of 10. Grief in my chest. Tightness in my chest. Cruden Farm. The movie title. Grief in my chest. Tightness in my chest. 9 out of 10. The movie title. Cruden Farm. Tightness and grief in my chest. Tightness and grief in my chest. Movie title. Cruden Farm. 9 out of 10. Cruden Farm movie title. Tightness in my chest. So just tune into that movie title. Close your eyes. Open your eyes. Look hard down to the left. Look hard down to the right. Keeping your head still, move your eyes slowly in one direction around the periphery. Moving your eyes slowly in the other direction. Alright, I just want you to follow my hand. Right, if you start down here, watching my fingers, keeping your head still, coming all the way around here. And all the way back. Okay. Hum happy birthday. Count to 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hum happy birthday. The movie title. Cruden Farm. 9 out of 10. Grief in my chest. Tightness in my chest. The movie title. Cruden Farm. The movie title. Cruden Farm. Deep breath. So when you think of that movie title, Cruden Farm now, how's your body feeling? What's it come down to?
Probably about a 5.
And what's the emotion? Is it still grief?
Sadness.
And is it still in the chest or has it moved?
It's moved down a bit. solar plexus.
Okay. So let me get that again. So it's sadness now. That's 5 out of 10, and it's in the solar plexus. Okay. Even though I've got this movie title, Cruden Farm, and I feel this sadness, 5 out of 10, in my solar plexus. I accept myself and my body and how I feel. Even though I've got this movie title, Cruden Farm, and I feel this sadness, 5 out of 10, in my solar plexus. I accept myself and my body right now. Even though I've got this movie title, Cruden Farm, and I feel sadness in my solar plexus. 5 out of 10. I accept myself and how I feel. Cruden Farm, the movie title, Cruden Farm, sadness in my solar plexus. 5 out of 10. Processing and releasing. This 5 out of 10 sadness in my solar plexus. When I think about Cruden Farm. Sadness in my solar plexus. Processing and releasing it. The movie title. Cruden Farm. Okay. When you think about that movie title now, so we're not thinking about the whole movie, just that title. How's your body feeling? What's it come down to?
Feels more grounded.
And what's the emotion? Grounded. What's the emotional charge?
3.
3. So when we get to 2 or 3, we ask, are you happy to move on with that? So when we start with a neutral place, so somewhere where there's a neutral emotion before we get to the Cruden Farm part, what's your neutral place?
Driving the car, it's sort of violet.
Yep, so it's got like a violet colour, and you're just driving the car. All right. So let's just start tapping here and just tell me what happens next and stop as soon as there's any emotional charge.
Okay. When I get to the sign that says Cruden Farm, I remember my late sister.
All right. So straight away, as soon as you see that sign, Cruden Farm, and you remember your late sister, where do you feel that in your body?
In my chest.
Yep. And what is it out of 10?
7.
7. And what's the emotion?
It's hard to... What's the emotion?
What's
just sadness.
Sadness. And what's the feeling in the chest? Of heart. Was it heart?
Chest.
What's the feeling in the chest?
Tightness.
A tightness.
Actually, it could be heart.
Okay. All right. So I wasn't sure, so I asked. So heart, 7 out of 10, tightness.
Yeah.
Even though I remember seeing the Cruden Farm sign. And it reminds me of my late sister. And I feel this 7 out of 10. Tightness. And sadness. In my heart. I accept myself. Deeply and completely. Even though I remember seeing the Cruden Farm sign. And I remember my late sister. And I feel sadness and tightness. In my heart. 7 out of 10. I accept myself. And how I feel. Even though I remember seeing Cruden Farm sign. And I remember my late sister. And I feel that sadness. And tightness. In my heart. 7 out of 10. I accept myself. And how I feel.
and how I feel.
The Cruden Farm sign.
Cruden Farm sign.
I remember seeing it.
I remember seeing it.
I can see that Cruden Farm
I
sign.
can see the Cruden Farm sign.
And I feel sadness.
And I feel sadness.
Remembering my late sister.
Remembering my late sister.
That sadness in my heart.
That sadness in my heart.
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
When I remember my late sister.
When I remember my late sister.
That tightness in my heart.
That tightness in my heart.
When I remember my late sister.
When I remember my late sister.
When I remember seeing Cruden Farm sign.
When I remember seeing Cruden Farm sign.
I remember my late sister.
I remember my late sister.
7 out of 10 tightness
7 out of 10 tightness
in my
in
heart.
my heart.
7 out of 10 sadness
7 out of 10 sadness
in my heart.
in my heart.
When I see Cruden Farm sign.
When I see Cruden Farm sign.
When I remember my late sister.
When I remember my late sister.
Deep breath. Okay, so when you remember now, picturing Cruden Farm sign, how's your body feeling? What's that come down to?
Again, I think it's a 3.
A 3? Where is that in your body?
Diaphragm.
Diaphragm. And what's the feeling or emotion there? Like you said, tightness in the heart. What's it, the feeling in the diaphragm?
So it's a kind of tightness, but it's a firmness.
Yep, all right. And it was 3 out of 10. Even though when I remember seeing Cruden Farm sign, it reminds me of my late sister.
It reminds me of my late sister.
And I feel a tightness and firmness
I feel a tightness and firmness
in my diaphragm.
in my diaphragm.
3 out of 10.
3 out of 10.
I accept myself
I accept myself
and the way my body's processing
and the
this.
way my body's processing this.
Even though I remember seeing Cruden Farm sign,
Even though I remember seeing Cruden Farm sign,
and it reminds me of my late sister,
it reminds me of my late sister.
and I feel tightness and firmness in my
And I
diaphragm.
feel tightness and firmness in my diaphragm.
3 out of 10.
3 out of 10.
I accept myself
I accept myself
and the way my body's processing this.
and the way my body's processing this.
Even though I still have that vision of Cruden Farm sign,
Even though I still have that vision of Cruden Farm sign.
and it reminds me of my sister,
And it reminds me of my sister.
my late sister,
My late sister.
I have that tightness and firmness in my diaphragm.
I have that tightness and firmness in my diaphragm.
That 3 out of 10 feeling,
That 3 out of 10 feeling.
I accept myself
I accept myself
and the way my body's processing
and
this.
the way my body's processing this.
This remaining feeling
This remaining feeling
in my diaphragm,
in my diaphragm.
tightness and firmness,
Tightness and firmness.
when I remember seeing Cruden Farm sign,
When I remember seeing Cruden Farm sign,
that reminds me of my late sister,
that reminds me of my late sister.
that tightness and firmness
That tightness and firmness
in my diaphragm.
in my diaphragm.
3 out of 10.
3 out of 10.
Thanking my body for processing and releasing this
Thanking my body for processing and releasing this
out of my diaphragm.
out of my diaphragm.
Okay, deep breath. Can you see as it's coming down to 3, it's already come from high and it's coming down, so I'm thanking the body for processing it, and it is being processed and released. So when you think about that part of the movie now, seeing Cruden Farm sign, and it reminding you of your late sister, how's your body feeling now?
Feels a bit wobbly around the tummy, but it feels okay to be like that.
Yep. So that's okay, you're okay to move on?
Yeah.
So there's just a little bit of wobbliness around the tummy. Okay. So if we go back to the neutral place, that violet colour, when you're driving along, then you see Cruden Farm sign, it reminds you of your late sister. What happens next?
I start remembering things associated with my sister and Cruden Farm.
Okay, so what's one of those things that you would start remembering?
That she knew Dame Elizabeth.
Yes.
uh,
She knew Dame Elizabeth.
Murdoch,
Elizabeth Murdoch, yeah.
who, because she had worked in the Murdoch Institute for many years.
Right.
Uh,
So when you remember that, she knew Dame Elizabeth Murdoch,
yeah.
who used to live there at Cruden Farm, and she worked in the Murdoch Institute for years. How is that landing in your body now?
That's okay, but there's another bit to it.
Okay, so tell me.
Which is, she died not long after Christmas one year, and what do you give someone for Christmas when they're dying? So I bought her a star, and when she unwrapped it and she realised what it was, she got quite emotional and said, "We got one of these for Dame Elizabeth."
Okay, so...
And that is the emotion.
Yeah. So when she said that, when she unwrapped the star and said, "We got one of these for Dame Elizabeth."
When she unwrapped the star and said...
Yeah, so I'm just asking,
Okay.
when that happened,
Yeah.
was it the look on her face, the tone of her voice? What was it that landed on you?
With the tone of her voice.
The tone of her voice when she said,
Yeah.
"We got one of these for Dame Elizabeth."
Because it was unexpected for her.
Right. Where does that land in your body when she said that?
I think around this area.
Mm-hmm. And what's the emotion?
Feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. What is it out of 10?
8.
Even though I've got this overwhelmed feeling,
Even though I've got this overwhelmed feeling,
when I remember giving my sister a star,
when I remember giving my sister a star,
and she said, "We gave one of these to Dame Elizabeth,"
and she said, "We gave one of theirs to Dame Elizabeth,"
and I remember the tone of her voice,
and I remember the tone of her voice,
and I feel it around my eyes,
and I feel it around my eyes.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
I accept myself
I accept myself
and this overwhelmed feeling,
and this overwhelmed feeling.
and I ask my body to process and release
I
it.
ask my body to process and release it.
Even though I remember
Even though I remember
giving my sister that star,
giving my sister that star,
and she said, "We gave one of these to Dame Elizabeth,"
and she said, "We gave one of these to Dame Elizabeth,"
and I can hear the tone of her voice,
and I can hear the tone of her voice,
and I feel overwhelmed
and I feel overwhelmed
around my eyes,
around my eyes.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
I accept myself
I accept myself
and how I'm feeling.
and how I'm feeling.
Even though I remember
Even though I remember
giving my late sister that star,
giving my late sister that star,
and she said,
and she said,
with that tone of voice,
with that tone of voice,
"We gave one of these to Dame Elizabeth,"
"We gave one of these to Dame Elizabeth,"
and I feel 8 out of 10 overwhelmed
and I feel 8 out of 10 overwhelmed
around my eyes.
around my eyes.
I accept myself
I accept myself
and all this emotion,
and all this emotion,
and I ask my body to process and
and I
release it.
ask my body to process and release it.
All this emotion,
All this emotion,
all this overwhelm,
all this overwhelm,
when I hear the tone of my sister's
and
voice
I hear the tone of my sister's voice
saying, "We gave one of these to Dame Elizabeth,"
saying, "We gave one of these to Dame Elizabeth,"
all the emotion,
all the emotion,
all the overwhelm,
all the overwhelm,
8 out of 10
8 out of 10
around my eyes,
around my eyes,
asking my body
asking my body
to process and release it.
to process and release it.
That overwhelm around my eyes,
That overwhelm around my eyes,
when I remember my sister's voice
when I remember my sister's voice
saying, "We gave one of these
saying, "We gave one of these
to Dame Elizabeth,"
to Dame Elizabeth,"
releasing the overwhelm
releasing the overwhelm
from around my eyes,
from around my eyes,
when I remember seeing
when I remember seeing
and hearing
and hearing
my sister say,
my sister say,
"We gave one of these to Dame Elizabeth,"
"We gave one of these to Dame Elizabeth,"
who lives at Cruden Farm,
who lived at Cruden Farm,
releasing it and letting it go,
releasing and letting it go.
all the overwhelm
All the overwhelm
from around my eyes.
from around my eyes.
So just that part, when you remember giving your sister the star,
Mm-hmm.
and her unwrapping it and saying, we gave one of these to Dame Elizabeth. How does that land in your body now when you remember hearing the tone of her voice?
It's pretty good, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it feels right.
Okay.
It's not
Good.
distressing now.
Yes. All right. So when you go back to the neutral place, is there more to the story? Or are we keeping
No.
to Cruden Farm?
Yeah, it's just Cruden Farm.
All right. So you tell me the story from the start. You're driving with that violet colour.
So I'm driving past with the sense of a violet colour. I see the sign saying Cruden Farm, and I'm reminded that that was Dame Elizabeth's place where my sister used to go to a garden party every year, and knew Dame Elizabeth. And then that when she was dying, I gave her a star, and she was quite emotional about it because she said that they'd given one to Dame Elizabeth as well.
So as you say that now, how's your body feeling?
It's quite calm, actually. Yeah.
Good. So next time you drive past Cruden Farm, which will be tomorrow
morning, yeah, I'll see how it goes.
See how it goes for testing.
Yep.
Excellent. Well done.
Thank you.